thought you had it. You recognize it.
I love you very much.
Many people like you.
We're all gonna go.
Let's drink a toast forever and ever. Let's drink a toast forever and ever.
Yes, indeedy. Welcome to the Upful LIFE Podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz, and this is episode number 40, coming at you live and direct from the Vibe Junkie Studio in Oakland, California. Yow, it's the big 4-0, y'all. Tell a friend. We're so grateful you are tuning in.
I love you very much.
Could I love you more? Time was running out. Could I love you more? Oh, right now, baby.
The beat is sicker than the blood in your stool. The way it repeats could trick you like a stuttering fool. Uttering Butter King jewels. His mother been cool. Schooled her how to wash away the crud in the drool pool. Made his chrome dome glisten. At first he couldn't tell she had a chromosome missing. Kept a spare somewhere in these underwear. He swear it helped her get the gum out her hair. They need to get their thumb out their rear.
Episode 40 of the Upful LIFE Podcast is brought to you by Path to Panacea. Luminosity. These thoughtfully crafted blends will inspire you to see your kitchen as an herbal apothecary. Botanicals are used in herbal medicine to help revive, tone, and invigorate systems, serving to nourish and restore balance. When you brew a cup of tea, take this time to steep in grandmother's wisdom, inviting it in abundance and offering gratitude. With each selection, you'll receive detailed information on the herbs and spices, benefits, flavors, and brewing instructions for your special blend. While these herbal formulas are perfect to brew for tea, with the easy-to-follow recipes, many can also be made into tinctures, syrups, and other botanical medicines. You can find them at pathtopanacea.com. That's PATHTOPANACEA.com, pathtopanacea.com. You can also find them on Etsy. Again, Luminosity. Tonic herbs, proper nutrition, adequate rest, connecting with self, and joyful exercise are our primary prescriptions for well-being. Quote Rosemary Gladstar. Path to Panacea, y'all.
Could I love you more? Oh, right now, baby.
From the top of the key for 3 villain. Been on in the game as long as he can really swing. Turn the corner spinning, bust that ass and get up. Dust off the mask, curl a laugh, give him a head up. He got jumped, it pumped his adrenaline. He said it made him tougher than a bump of raw medicine. To write all night long, the hourglass is still slow. Flow from hellborn to free power like Lil Cole. And still owe bills, pay dues forever. Slave use when it comes to who's more cleverer. Used to wear leather goose fee with the first collar. And charge the fee for loose leaf, words per dollar. You heard holler. Broad or dude, we need food. Eat your team for sure, the streets sure seem rude. For fam like the partridges. Pardon him for the mix-up. Battle for your Atari cartridges or put your kicks up. It's a stick, I put your flicks up. He's ready to cold cut the slow like give him 20.
And we're back. Yes, indeed. Upful LIFE Podcast, episode 40. 4th decade. We done made it. Give thanks. It's a new year, 2021. And, yeah. I'm not sure we've ever been so stoked to turn the page, but still, nonetheless, got to give thanks for an amazing year for this podcast, and just give thanks for making it through such a confusing and confounding experience that was 2020. And I heard from some folks along the way that this podcast, in one way or another, was in some way special or effective for however you chose to navigate the past year. So I am so stoked to know that folks feel such a way about the show, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. Everybody who sends messages, emails, etc., expressing such sentiments, very appreciative and honored you feel that way. So give thanks that we made it to 2021, and everyone out there that tunes in really goes a long way to keeping me creating the Upful LIFE podcast. And just wanted to acknowledge some of our friends in the podcast game, like Dopey Podcast. Dave at Dopey came on this show, and he's been a great friend to the Upful LIFE podcast, as has Conspirituality Podcast and Derek Barris. So shout out to Derek. And of course, Eric Krasno, Kraz Plus One, amazing show, dear friend, and just wanted to shout out Eric and the team over at Osiris. Wanted to let everyone know you can rate and review the Upful LIFE podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your podcast player of choice. Goes a long way to sending the algorithms in this direction, letting people know how they can discover the show. I've gotten some wonderful reviews, and I appreciate every last one of them. But if you do have the time and are so inclined, please consider rate or review the podcast. You can also hit me up direct, b.gets@upfullife.com. Send me an email. Love to hear recommendations, reflections, any thoughts you might have on any of the matters. And I'm proud to announce that we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/upfullife. Just kind of getting it off the ground. I hear from some folks, how can they support? How can they get behind this project? Well, rolling out the Patreon. We've got it up there. You can check it out. I've got some, fun prizes for anyone who just chooses to become a patron. Starting off with some stickers, some playlists, some music from my personal collection. So feel free to join in or just hit me up direct at b.gets@upfullife.com. Speaking of upfullife.com, just dropped the annual 20 favorite records of 2020. So that was 20 albums reviewed, another 20 honorable mentions, which just as easily could be in the top 20, and then a smattering of singles and 7-inches and live album releases. Just kind of like to reflect on the year in music at the end of every revolution around the sun. And this, as I mentioned, was a strange, perplexing year, and we had a lot of time to sink into the music that came out, that was birthed during this epic pause. And I think the art in a lot of ways reflects that context and cultural climate. So please feel free to swing on over to upfullife.com and check out the 20 favorite records of 2020. Give thanks for everyone who's already done that. Of course, there is a donation link, PayPal and Venmo in there. If you're so inclined to support the journalism in that way, be so obliged. So again, rate and review the podcast. Check out the patreon.com/upfullife and go to upfullife.com for the latest year in review project. I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge I hate when they say untimely passing. When is it ever timely? But just the seismic shift that is the transition of one metal face, metal fingers, Doomale, King Ghidorah, Victor Vaughn, MF Doom, Zev Love X has left the building. So it is, what a blow at the end of the Jah-forsaken year of 2020. Just a gut punch on the way out the door. And the music culture has been reeling all year from one loss after the next. As we all have in our personal lives, the music culture has been affected markedly. and really tough to take the loss of MF Doom on the last day of the year. Turns out he actually passed away on Halloween and was able to keep his transition just to his family, and it was his wife, Jasmine, who announced it on New Year's Eve afternoon that Dumile had indeed transitioned. And you know, a lot of websites and blogs and podcasts will opine on this man's career, this man's artistic output, his voluminous contributions to the culture, the way he revolutionized emceeing, his production, his affiliations, his influence on 2 and 3 generations of rappers, MCs, producers. So I'm going to leave that to them. I'm going to play a little bit of Doom in the background as we get things started here, and just offer a deep bow of gratitude and raise a glass in tribute and roll up an L for the masked villain, MF Doom, and give thanks for everything that he did while he was here, and we'll continue to celebrate his life and, of course, listen to his music for the rest of time. With that, we'll hear a little bit of Rhymes Like Dimes from Operation Doomsday, one of the first MF Doom tracks I ever heard, and then we'll get into our guest for episode 40 of the Upful LIFE Podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz. Rest easy, Dumile.
When he tellin' rhyme, when it's his time, I hope his soul go to heaven. He nasty like the old time, old number 7. You still taste it when you chase it with the Coca-Cola. Make 'em wish they could erase it out the Motorola. I told her, no credit, fall back. If you want what they got, then go get it, it's all gag. Only in America could you find a way to earn a healthy buck and still keep your attitude on self-destruct. I sell rhymes like dimes, the one who mostly keep cash but tell about the broke times. Joker rhymes like the is you just happy to see me trick.
For episode 40 of the Upful LIFE Podcast, proud to welcome Jonny G of the band Lespecial, Jon Grusauskas. I'm new to the Lespecial universe. Some may say I've been asleep at the wheel, but a little context here. Sometime in late October, I got a message from Jonny asking me to check out his new record with Lespecial called Ancient Homies, which was going to drop on December 4th. And yeah, I get a number of these, hey, check out the press advance of our new record, etc. And I try not to take it for granted, but I don't always get around to listening to every song on every release. For whatever reason, something stuck with me, the way he asked, maybe just certain mystique that is around Lespecial that I was certainly aware of, if not attuned to. And I also, way years ago, 5-ish years ago, 4.5, on a weed farm here in Northern Cali, my man Mikey Dread's place. A fellow named Jules Jensen was hyping lespecial to me as we spent a couple days together in this spot up in Grass Valley, and it stuck with me. Jules is an accomplished musician himself. He was on tour at the time, kind of stopping through his buddy's place. I happened to be there, and Jules was involved in some way with the recording a track or two on Ancient Homies, the new lespecial album, but he's a lespecial fam. And so is Jackson Whalen, who's a good friend of the podcast and will be coming on here soon. So it was familiar, even though I was relatively unawares as to the music of lespecial. But so grateful that Jonny G hit me up, because it's been a long time since I had such a profound, out of left field experience with an album. Totally unexpected and completely overwhelming. You know, though I occasionally enjoyed Jonny G's contributions to music discussions on social media, you know, I have to acknowledge I was less than familiar with his work. Some years ago, you know, I'd heard a little bit from them, but I made a snap judgment or something and didn't circle back, and that's on me. It's my bad. Certainly a lesson there. And it turns out I've been missing out on something pretty serious. But I'm not sure anything could have really prepared me for the visceral, physical, downright spiritual experience that Ancient Homies delivers. I'm new to lespecial, but this mystique and this music, it's in my blood. So, yeah, hailing from Housatonic High School in Falls Village, Connecticut, these are childhood friends. Jonny G, the drummer, Rory Dolan, the bassist, Luke Beaumont. Johnny's on guitar, keyboard, samples, vocals, and they all kind of produce and mess around with the electronic side of things. This is actually their third record, their first on Ropeadope, and they made it in a different experience and creative space, obviously because of COVID-19, quarantine, being off the road, etc. So we get into all of that. But I gotta say, I'm super just vibing with my man Jonny G. Ever since we connected and I dove into this record, it's been a really rewarding relationship. Just first through his music and then getting to know him a little bit through our communications, and eventually 2 conversations which make up the podcast you're about to hear. It's time that we put a little bit of a light on some of the younger, talented, and really motivated, intentional creators in this culture, in this community, and in other communities as well. So one of the things we're going to look toward in 2021 is, you know, the future. And that starts with these cats, lespecial. It's future music, but they're ancient homies. And real talk, Jonny G feels like an ancient homie to me already. And I don't say that lightly, but there's a connection there. And from that came this forthcoming conversation. So I'm going to leave you with a little bit of the song Boundary Dissolution, found at the end of Ancient Homies. Really emotional, beautiful number. And then I'll play another special song for the Vibe Junkie Jam at the end. But maybe we'll go a little heavier with that one. But here's Boundary Dissolution, and then you'll hear my conversation with Jonny G of lespecial on episode 40 of the Upful LIFE Podcast. I'm your host, B Getz. Yes, indeedy.
Someone tell me where the door to this room is. I've been here too long in all the things I've missed. When your eyes were closed, you told it like you could. This awaits you if you stray into the woods. Feel it snaking through in between
What's up, B?
Hey, Jonny G. How's it going?
Great to talk to you, man. You hear me okay?
Yeah, man, you sound loud and clear, dude. Super grateful for your time and, of course, the music. It's pretty late. You know, I'm talking to you on the East Coast. I'm out here in Oakland. You a night owl by nature?
Yeah, I am. So it's 11:38 here. That's nothing. That's just when the juices start flowing.
Yeah, I feel the same, you know, and as I get older, I realize it's more peculiar. But what is it about the nighttime hours, whether it's creativity or is it the sort of silence you get with yourself? I find that some of my almost like manic creativity and production, whether it's writing or podcasting, happens nocturnally.
Yeah, same here. Like staying up late making beats or messing with music, playing guitar. Yeah, for some reason, I think it's what you said. It's like the silence you have with yourself. Maybe it's because everyone else is asleep. So there's this sort of, you're free of responsibility in a sense. You can just create. The world's kind of on hold for a second. That's a great question, though. I've wondered about that a lot.
Yeah, well, I was, wondering whether or not, this time was going to work out. We've been kind of juggling and you've been, on the go doing a lot of stuff, which we'll get to around your big New Year's event. And of course the album rollout and me, I'm home at the home office a lot, but it's not always the ideal time for what I do with the writing. And I find that, when everybody else, not even just my partner here at the home, but just like when it seems like there's a collective quiet in the neighborhood or in my mental space, it's just an easier way to get out the easel and just sort of draw, to use a metaphor. So I also hear your music, it's nighttime music. And I do that a lot where I compartmentalize things for certain emotions, time of day, seasonal. But I got a lot of nighttime vibes from lespecial. So that's what really made the whole late night vibe the other night cool. So let's start there. You guys did, like many bands, a New Year's event where you streamed a live performance. So for those folks who don't know what goes into that, who just turn on their computer and see a band performing, maybe just take us through how you all put that together.
Well, we couldn't have done it without our crew. It was pre-recorded, so we could get the mix right, so we can edit all the clips and the ads from the sponsors in. So it was a live set. We performed it seamlessly, 2 sets, but it wasn't being broadcast, to YouTube at the exact moment it was filmed. It was actually recorded at around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, the Tuesday before New Year's, which I was a little apprehensive about because, like you said, we're night music, and I would agree with that. I think usually when we do our thing, it's late at night. But no, it felt good and sounds good. So we can do a set before midnight, we learned.
Right. But how about the process of actually creating a live performance with, no audience and it's not a ticketed event? Because, I'm just watching y'all and I've watched it back a couple times already. And, it's, you got the lights, you got the visual accompaniment, you got banter between songs. I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, do y'all approach it like a gig or is it more like a video shoot? I mean, you said it was seamless sets, so I guess what you're saying is you got out there and you played sets. You didn't do like a second take of another song, like let's get it again. You just played,
which we could have,
right?
Which is a great opportunity, but it was sort of weird to shift gears between those two things. So we were just like, let's just play, get through it. If it's not perfect, it's a fucking live set. But no, it's a great question, man, and we're learning as we go. I mean, in this new era of distancing, people are rewriting the book on how to do these performances. So yes, it was a video shoot as well as a live show. It was kind of a unique thing that maybe you wouldn't really think to do if things weren't what they are right now. So it's interesting exploring that. But so we went to this space. It's Audio Spectrum in Randolph, Mass, just south of Boston. Huge warehouse audio rental company. I mean, I'm talking every guitar amp you'd want, every bass rig you'd ever want, line array, like PA systems, and front of house, huge consoles, and there's like a Sprinter van in the place and everything. So they set up this huge video wall for us and some sound, and our crew came in. We had Vin Puglisi, who is VFX Design Studios, very talented LD visual artist from Boston area. We worked with him closely to get video content from song to song and, lighting concepts. And then it was live streamed by our media manager, Chris Bykirk from Rochester, New York. We call him CB. He's CB Video Marketing. He captured the whole thing and streamed it and did the camera cuts. And then he drove home to Rochester that night. He got home at like 6 a.m. And then the next day it was crunch time. We had to get it out by New Year's. So he edited this whole thing together for this frantic day, where we're shooting him the audio mix and getting everything together. He worked his ass off. So we couldn't have done it without our crew. And hopefully that gives you some insight into the process of how we did it.
Oh, it definitely does, man. I gotta say, like the whole look of it was really the aesthetic, I should say. It was dope. Like I think in this era, as you said, people are forced to go back to the drawing board and rewrite the book on what you do in whatever mediums now that it's virtual. And you see various levels of production value, depending on the artist or the nature of the circumstance. So I, work extensively with Live for Live Music. I don't have a huge role in their virtual live festival, streaming festivals, but, they've evolved that concept from beginning till now, where they'll collect a bunch of performances and sort of string them together, and you can see one to the next. One is kind of a little bit more produced or maybe filmed at Tipitina's, and then one is just like Aaron Neville, his little Yamaha keyboard and fireplace in the background. Of course, I love the record, so I was keen to see how you'd bring those songs to life, and that's kind of what I want to talk about next. But just the look and the feel juxtaposed to some of the other productions I've seen, not just on New Year's, but in general, like you guys nailed it. It was really engaging. I couldn't help but chuckle with the sponsors. You guys were stoked to get like cannabis sponsors, and then you're like plugging the sponsors. And, it's just really, it's an evolution of the medium of the live stream. And then, yeah, of course you set a goal. It can't be fun to have to kind of like grovel for donations, but that's part of it. And you have to ask and bring attention to it. And,
especially after a year of people doing that,
sure. Yeah.
People are fatigued of the streams. So we were nervous about that.
But you guys did great. You crushed your goal, and that's got to buoy your spirits to be like, wow, man, like we still have our fans and they're still willing to spend. And it's a harder earned buck today than it was a year ago. The dollar from the fan it's a lot harder to part with in a pandemic. But
yes,
I was really stoked to see you guys do well. So give thanks. Your fans are really lifting you up, and you got the crew coming together, busting their ass, putting this together in 24 hours. And then you guys stepped up and nailed it. A lot of this was maybe, some of the first times maybe performing some of this material, or the first few with Ancient Homies songs in the live element.
Some of them we've been playing for a while, and some of them they were live staples, and some of them we never played until that show. And it was a challenge. We still haven't tackled Repeater. That one kind of came together in Ableton and sort of sending each other clips back and forth. So it didn't come together like most of her songs, which is us three in a room playing off each other. So that one's going to be a challenge. But no, it was great fun to do the Homie tracks. We did Homie, Numero Uno, and Dos, which, as you know, B, were improvs in the studio. We recorded those with a lot of the album with our buddy Jamie Saft. He lives out near Woodstock. It was a casual hang since he was our friend, and we got to kind of improvise more than we've ever been able to do in a studio situation. Usually you're kind of on the clock and trying to get your 12 songs down or whatever. So we would jam late night and listen back later and see if there was anything in there. And those became the homie tracks. There's 3 of them. And we performed those 1 and 2. And they're different, as I'd be curious to hear what you thought compared to hearing them on the record, because they are sort of loose and improvised. But it was fun to do them, and it was really fun. Like the heavy part at the end of Homie 2, that was just a bass riff that Luke improvised in the studio. And I put guitar overdubs, like metal overdubs over it. So we'd never done that before. And so that was really fun playing that live and being like, wow, this was just kind of an in the moment, something Luke was feeling that is now a composed part of a song. So that was fun. And I'm curious what you thought of the homie tracks.
I was wondering how you guys were going to approach it. I just adore that, especially that heavy part at the end. You know, is just very fulfilling to a guy like me, as I wrote about the story. But it also was a great bridge between Tonberry, which, you know, is like such an epic already. And I know your fans feel that way when I read the comments and stuff, or when the album came out. A lot of people were heavy on the Tonberry. But like Machine Elf is such a different sound and such a bold leap. And I thought that Homie Dose was a nice bridge there and enabled you to sort of navigate that space. And it was also cool just to hear, like, what, as you described, what I already knew was like an improvisational thing recreated. It was, you know, it was clearly the same ideas, but not note for note identical. And it gives it personality and sort of keeps it alive. So I enjoyed it, man. I'm new to the band. You know, I've never really seen a full set live. So I didn't really know what to expect. And as part of the reason why I wanted to talk now, juxtaposed to when we talked right around when the album was coming out, because I listened to the record a ton in the interim and got the opportunity to see you perform it. Is it difficult to authentically recreate? Because you do a lot of studio tricks, bells and whistles, you know, in terms of sound design and synths and all kinds of stuff that's outside of the normal paradigm of the power trio, guitar, bass, drums. You know, we're a long way from Disraeli gears. Are you conscious of any kind of, okay, how do we recreate this on stage? You know, is that a difficult thing to do? Is that something that comes natural?
Yep, a lot of the electronic stuff we have kind of in our samplers and stuff, just at the ready. But the, like, Tonberry, for example, that guitar at the end is like quadruple tracked in the studio. So that, to me, is really the sort of like, uh-oh, is this going to sound big for people? But I have to say, when I listen back to Stackpole's mix, shout out Andy Stackpole, the engineer, I have to say, like, in my car, it was pretty bumping. And there was even one point when I was hearing Snell's Fleetback, and I, like, thought someone had the record on. So, like, that's a good sign. Like, it still sounded powerful to me. I'm glad you felt the same way, because you know the record. Because
that riff at the end of Tonberry is, you know, some of its most, like, just hellhammer, just sludgy shit I've ever heard from anyone. And I did find myself thinking, like, I want to stand in a room and hear this. And more so, I want to put my head in a Marshall stack. Yeah, you want to feel the air. Right. That said, you're right. The mix was really, it was big and chunky, but also had definition. Because a lot of times with that really chunky, heavy, distorted, palm muted, the dynamics and the sort of the notes and the nuance can get lost in the enormity of the sound. And that didn't happen. I even did one time through in headphones and really can hear the intricacies. And I think that's really the beauty of Ancient Homies to me, outside of the really euphoric, aggressive sort of like, I can run through a wall to this music. There's so much nuance. So if we could shift gears, maybe my entry point is Ancient Homies, you know, so I don't have all the history. A lot of times I'm able to meet an artist there, but you're going to have to tell me that story. But I can meet you there with Ancient Homies, so I kind of want to start there. What did you learn from this recording experience, from being able to sit around, smoke bongs, jam through the night, sleep under the piano, all that shit? How did that affect your creative process versus the regimented, we have the studio from 10 to 6 today for the next 4 days?
It's the first time we got to go in a studio and not be like, all right, we have 1 week to do these songs we've prepared and like we're on the crunch. This was like we're recording with our homie Jamie Saft, incredible jazz pianist. He's the only dude who to this day has ever sat in with Bad Brains. He's a man. He's done organ shit for the Beasties. Anyway, he lives near Woodstock. We went to his spot and we were able to kind of be a little more free, rip the bong in the studio, hang out. He would leave it recording at night and go upstairs and go to bed and just let us go. So that was like the first time we had the luxury of like, we can just totally off the clock improvise and then see if anything is worth keeping in there, But sometimes limitations are the best. If you have 3 hours to lay down these guitars or whatever, you're going to, really focus and hopefully do something good. So I think it's just a different thing. I think we were really excited to work in a different way this time, to take an improv we did in the studio and learn the bass line Luke was playing and record guitar over that. We'd never gotten to do that. It was just fun and a learning experience. And now we know we can work in this way, do it a little more DIY in our studio.
Like, did you have a fourth voice, a producer, somebody with any cachet that you turned to for, constructive criticism or in lieu of a producer engineer?
You were always showing our friends, bouncing it off our team members, our crew. Yeah, it was a long process. I mean, April or when we started kind of compiling everything, and then this summer we're mixing it and going back and forth about it. It's hard. It's hard to look back at it and even really remember like who was chiming in, who were we bouncing stuff off of, because it was quite a process. I mean, I remember being on vacation with my family, like grilling fish and like talking to David, the mixing engineer, like, just constant calls. It was great. It was fun to work, but it was like consuming, very consuming.
Right on.
I'm reminded of an interview with Larry Lalonde, guitarist for Primus. He was on the Dean Del Rey podcast, and he's talking about the early years of Primus, how Les Claypool was extremely resourceful in DIY. I mean, he recorded their first record like with a loan from his dad. He's doing art himself. He's going to record stores, driving it around. He just kind of had this, hey guys, we can do this mentality. And I think I learned, I think H and Homies definitely taught us that we can do stuff here at the Music Cellar, and we can do stuff remotely and send stuff back and forth and still get a pretty good fidelity.
And even more than fidelity, I mean, pretty good fidelity is putting it lightly, man. I love the sound design on the new record. It's so dynamic in the headphones. It's so big and juicy and emotional and nuanced.
So I want to ask you at the end of Tonberry, like when it's all those layers of guitar, what's the balance of, okay, we're going to use the recording studio as to paint, a beautiful picture like the Beatles did with Sgt. Pepper, but when is it too much and when is it like we can't recreate this live? Where do you kind of draw the line? Like, should we keep quadruple tracking metal guitars if it's not going to sound quite as gnarly in a live setting?
Well, I mean, of course, it's not for me to say, especially since I'm new to the lespecial game. But that said, and I appreciate you turning around and asking me a question. I have such a visceral, physical, spiritual experience with the Tonberry sort of coda. It begins with that really hammering breakdown and guitars. So I wouldn't sacrifice that for anything, even if you can't recreate it live. If you think about some of the great metal records, like Justice didn't sound like Justice live, even if it was great. Like there's a lot of studio tricks that, has been written about for years.
You
about
could probably hear the bass player better live, though.
Oh, well, goes without saying. Remind me to send you And Justice for Jason, which is somebody took painstakingly did a mix where they just put bass in it. It's incredible.
I've seen that, and I've listened to the Black album of that, too.
Yeah. But so I don't think you should consider that. No.
Isn't that interesting, though, that like the recording studio can either be a camera, like it takes a photograph of a band, exactly how they sound live, or it can be used to literally paint, like Sgt. Pepper style, and just layer things that you could never layer. It's such an endless world. It excites me.
What I would want to turn the question back on you is, are you making the records to play them live, or are you making them for the listening experience? Because I think in the quote unquote jam band universe, the live element is most sacred, most sought, and really what spins the wheel. So whether you're the Grateful Dead or whoever, they almost always made records, save for one or two, that were just kind of like, okay, this is the batch of songs that we're going to take on the road. And then the real magic happened in whatever city that they caught lightning in a bottle. But I don't know. And again, I came to the band at Ancient Homies, so I don't have a frame of reference for the journey. But for me, the listening experience of the album is so potent that it doesn't feel like it's a stepping stone to the performance. To me, the record is the record. Like, I could never see you guys live, and I'll go back to this album for the rest of my life. But the flip side is, do you make the songs like, man, when we get this one out live, we're going to play this section for the next 2 minutes, which you wouldn't do on a record, but you might write that section because you know it's going to be a real... Is that something you discuss? Do you talk about it in the studio? Like, man, maybe we shouldn't because we'll never recreate this live? Or does that make it maybe more special, more exclusive, like higher art? We can only accomplish this in the studio.
Oh, man. Well, I guess we've always done the snapshot technique where we play live together all at once, do takes, usually not to a click track, just how we've always played together. But I guess to answer your earlier question, more is that maybe with this album, we started to explore the other end of the coin more and maybe do things that are harder to do live or didn't come together in a live setting, using the studio to paint more. So they both excite me. They're both different processes. But I think it's nice to finally start exploring that other method.
What did you bring each to the studio for Ancient Homies? Because it's during the pandemic. You mentioned you'd played some songs live already. I remember reading somewhere that there was like version of The Vessel already in circulation in some capacity. But how did you guys show up? Did you have ideas on a USB stick? Like, were you sending stuff around for months in advance? How did you, before you showed up at Jamie's, since you couldn't really get together and gig or really practice all that often, if at all, how did you accumulate material, ideas, and then what was the process of like sharing them and stitching together the songs from those ideas?
So we always go into the studio with a batch of songs. If we're lucky, we can write something the night before or jam something the night before. We've done that actually on both the previous records. There's a song on each that was made the night before. But for this one, we had like Machine Elf and The Vessel. Those are pretty old songs. We've been playing those live for a long time. Boundary is from back in 2016. And we hadn't been in the studio in a while, really. We were touring so hard those last few years that these were really live tracks just being honed live. So when we ran into the studio, we had those. We had Snell's, Tonberry. Those were a little more recent songs that Luke brought to the band. We had Repeater sort of sitting on my laptop, evolving slowly, same with Egg Time. And then, of course, the Homies were jams. But we just went in and kind of played the songs the way we play them live, perfect them as we go.
Word. That's amazing because it sounds like such a studio creation of, you reference like a Sgt. Pepper and just in terms of intention, like it's not just like a band in a room, but it sounds like really it was, which makes it even more remarkable. And you reference Luke bringing songs, and again, I'm going to ask a lot of maybe basic B questions because I'm new here,
Good.
But how does the division of writing or producing or lyric writing, how does that break down amongst the three of you?
We do the Radiohead thing where everybody is a third of a writer for each song. Even if Luke brings a riff or I bring something from the riff pile or chord progression or lyrics, we all write our own parts. We've always been a collaborative band. Democracy. Lyrics are usually me because I'm usually the one singing, but Luke has a great song called American Apocalypse that was on the last record, Sheen. Really, really awesome imagery and lyrics. He also sings and wrote a song called Optimus Prime Slot on Omnisquid. But it's definitely a collaborative relationship.
Will Luke write lyrics that you'll sing or a melody that you'll sing?
I would love to do that. I mean, I guess, on American Apocalypse, I sing the choruses with him. It would be really cool, actually, for him to write lyrics for me to sing lead on. He's a great writer, him and Rory. So that's just another thing to try.
But that breakdown, that sort of 1/3 man across the board, that democracy, obviously rooted in your path, your history as a band.
Yep.
I think that's really remarkable. As I found you guys, you've been a band for 15 years, same three dudes going back to high school. So let's go back to Connecticut and talk just a little bit about you coming up as a youngster, encountering Rory and Luke.
Luke saw Rory play in the gym with another band, and they had him up on these like wrestling mats. He had like a drum riser, and he thought it was so cool that he was like, "Mom, please buy me a guitar." And she got him a guitar with a whammy bar, so they let him in the band because they thought the whammy bar was cool. So roots go deep. Been playing together for ages, ancient homies.
Word. So where did you all come together 15 years ago?
Housatonic High School in Northwest Connecticut. So it's like right in the Berkshires, kind of like Appalachian Trail, New York, Connecticut, Mass corner.
Right on.
I met Rory in like school band. He had like frosted tips and like a corn t-shirt on. We just started talking. And when we started jamming, I was in a band on drums with Luke. And when we started jamming with the three of us, they were just such a tight drum and bass rhythm section. I mean, they'd been playing together since 5th grade. That it was like, all right, John, you got to play guitar. So I had played acoustic for a couple of years, but I really didn't pick up an electric guitar until I started jamming in the basement, like borrowed a guitar and some pedals to jam with these guys. And then, they dragged me to a Primus show. I shouldn't say dragged. They got me into Primus, which is obviously huge for us. We were just buddies. We were going to Medeski concerts together in my station wagon. And we just all shared a passion for cool exploratory music.
Help me out here. Back in 2003, 4, 5, whenever this is, are the same kids going to Medeski, Martin, and Wood that are going to Korn, that are going to Primus?
Good question. Probably not so much that, but you know what? Mike Chappelle, he drove us to the Medeski, Martin, and Wood clinic at Trinity College. And he also was like a huge Korn guy back in the day. So yeah, you know what? There's definitely some crossover. Probably more so with Primus and Medeski, Martin, and Wood. Speaking of which, there's a recording somewhere that I really need to find. Maybe you can help me. At the Jammy Awards, Les Claypool actually played with Medeski, Martin, and Wood. They did Lively Up Yourself, and I think Bemsha Swing by Thelonious Monk. I could be wrong. And that's like two of our worlds colliding, like huge hero status for us. So if anyone out there has any footage from that or anything, I would love to see that.
I'll put the SOS out, man. I remember those jammies. Maybe someone who's listening to the pod might have an idea as to how to locate that performance.
I mean, I love putting musicians together like that. Like, it's my dream to do like a co-laboratory, I've always wanted to call it, and like put like, Adam Deitch with Colin Greenwood from Radiohead on bass, and just like put different musicians together who kind of speak the language, and that shit fascinates me. It'd be really cool to hear, to have Radiohead see Soul Live in concert. I've always wanted Radiohead to sit front row for fucking Soul Live doing like a James Brown jam. It's just so powerful. They would love it.
Yeah, man, those are some interesting ideas. And that goes on like a lot down at Jazz Fest, and has for years, and it did to a lesser extent at Bear Creek, which is a beloved funk festival we went to for many years. But yeah, I find that can be like really hit or miss with the whole Super Jam thing, especially when it becomes old hat and it's the same songs and stuff. But when, like, the first time I saw that happen was Oysterhead at Jazz Fest New Orleans in 2000, which was what actually got me there, because I was a big Primus fan, huge Fish fan, and of course Stuart Copeland on drums. But the very first Garage à Trois show was the opening act for, we just talked to Mike Dillon about this on the last pod, but yeah, those were two really just like all-star assemblies. That,
Did you say 07?
No, 2000.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was my first Jazz Fest.
Open for Oysterhead?
Yeah, both of their first gigs. And
wow.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable experience. And so and there was so much promise to what could be. And like, they have run with that with, Bonnaroo does a really cool Super Jam, or not unlike what you're dreaming, where they have, Questlove and D'Angelo playing Zeppelin with Kraz and like Beck and, just all these superstars kind of coming together and doing fun stuff. But
love it.
It can also go off the rails and be just a wank fest
yep.
too. And that's a good pivot because I wanted to talk about the jam band thing a little bit. You know, I remember seeing something on lespecial social, but like, are we a jam band? You know, yes or no? And I was like, ready to fight. No. You know, even though I just got here 5 minutes ago, like, there's a reason to go. You know, but at the same time, you know, the jam band audience, I'm going to tell you a quick aside. I mentioned that, you know, I was so moved by ancient homies that I sent it to my ancient homies, the kids I grew up, because I played music for many years, and I know I told you about that. And I was in a band in my elementary school and all the way up through high school with a fella named Gabe Rock and Steve Malik. Shout out those guys in case they happen to be tuning in. And I don't talk to them that often anymore, but it was important for me to send them your record for all these like symbiotic reasons. Not the least of which is we were really heavy music guys before we found the Dead and Fish and all that stuff. And I said to Gabe, because he was asking about your rig and went online and went and checked you out and all that stuff. And I was like, man, tell me these guys are not a jam band. And he didn't know about the conversation or the question or whatever. I just kind of made an offhand comment. And he was like, only a jam band audience has the wingspan to appreciate all the different things that you do, because you're too dance music for a death metal guy or a hardcore guy, and you're, you know, way too heavy for a rave. But the jam band fan that loves the Beastie Boys and Tipper and Justice for All has room for all the flavors of the special. And that brought me back to the audience thing, which is like jam band is not the band, it's the audience.
I mean, we've talked about wanting to break away and like get beyond that, but at the same time, it's like, God bless the fucking jam scene for like giving us ears. Like, what other scene has so many receptive listeners who will, you know, stand and listen to you jam? It's sort of, yeah, you could be an elitist and be like, jam bands, but hey, they have a potent musical scene that is generating the livings for certain musicians. And
right,
it's hard to be like a rock band, you know, and go and like be an alternative rock band. How many alternative rock bands are making a living right now? Whereas there's some working bands on the jam scene that can eke by, and that's good that there's an open-minded scene for that, you know.
I always bring it back to Lettuce. They ran from the jam band tag for so long. I mean, really eschew the tag and try to distance themselves from it.
And more power.
Over time, yeah, I mean, and I would tell anyone who listens, this is not a jam band. I still will. But the point is, I think that Shameens was making to me, because I asked him that question in the pod. Do you see yourself as a jam band? And it's like, man, it's just a community. Those people support Lettuce like a motherfucker. So, yeah. And I think the same could be said for your band, because most of the people who got in my ear about lespecial did so from this community.
That's where we've been getting our bread and butter. The festivals and the shows have been those scenes. Speaking of Lettuce, though, I mean, when you listen to their records and you hear how faithfully they carry the torch of like James Brown and Sly, and how well put together and crafted their funk arrangements are, it's like that's testament enough that this isn't just another jam band. Like, they are masters. They're paying homage. They're carrying things forward and evolving, but doing their fucking homework. Like, it is so disciplined and well put together that I figure anyone who listens to that hopefully will pick up on that discipline, really. So whereas the jam band thing is sometimes thought of as loose, but again, it's a tolerant scene of ears, and that's great that we have that.
Do you see yourselves of the jam band culture? Do you play to a jam band audience? And where does the electronic, because I know you have tons of remixes and collaborations with all kinds of electronic artists. Where does that come into the spectrum?
So the jam band thing, I'm kind of with you, B. Like, my hating years are done. Like, you say what you want about jam band festivals, but this is some open-minded motherfuckers for music and for exploratory bands and experimental shit. I mean, you see jazzy shit, you see hip-hop, you see it runs the gamut. So we're grateful for that cradle, you know, here on the East Coast and out to Colorado and California, whatever. It's been good to us. Whether or not we're a jam band, I mean, I don't even really like genre names. It's like music is all the same. It's all one of the same, you know, it's just frequencies arranged differently. And, you know, Modest Mouse fucking jams on their Long Drive album. There's like Television, they have long extended guitar jams. Neil Young, but it's like, it's kind of like you said, it's the fans. It's kind of, to me, it's like it's what they're wearing. It's like I've always said, you could like have a band that sounds kind of like a vintage Neil Young kind of fuzzed out rock band. You could kind of dress them all wookish. They'd be called people might dub them a jam band. Whereas you dress them in skinny jeans, it's like they're indie rock. It's kind of just all marketing bullshit. So I don't even like to compartmentalize so much. Dance is a huge element. We want there to be groove. We want, to pay homage to the traditions and the lineage before us, be it jazz or Afrobeat or Afro-Cuban, that's sacred to us, like the music and movement music to elevate people. But, call it what you want it. We don't really say whether or not we are, that's for the listener to decide maybe. As far as electronic, we just love electronic music. I know you and I have talked a lot about that. We just kind of take elements of what we like and put it all together, and no deliberate, like we're trying to make this genre of song right now. It's just sort of, let's get this vibe. Or like, remember that sick 9 Inch Nails show we saw when they came out and the lights were on and then it flashed off and the bass hit? Like, let's do something like that. Like, it's more like that approach.
Interesting you reference both it being deliberate and 9 Inch Nails, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Some of the, I don't want to say like accoutrements or elements that you employ, sort of synthetic sounds, bass tones, synths, a certain guitar tone that I noticed you use, which is distorted but also like strangely computerized. Those are all things that were first introduced to me through Trent, through 9 Inch Nails, who made unapologetically violent, heavy music you could dance to. And like Pretty Hate Machine, Broken, that was revolutionary because, we had Slayer, Metallica, and then you also had like Depeche Mode, or if you want to get in Ministry, KMFDM, all these, as you so eloquently stated, compartmentalized bands of they're this or they're that. And Trent just threw that shit out the window and just made art as he heard it and felt it. And I see the lineage there. Maybe now, having watched you perform live on the stream and even hearing you touch on Wish, there's a lineage there. And I don't know. I think that especially in the quote-unquote jam band scene, you'll hear a lot of bands working in elements of electronic music with the amen break or some drum and bass stuff or really, heavy-handed womp. And it doesn't always work. So I was curious, in essence, like, is there a band member that is it you, or is everyone as attuned to Aphex Twin and Tipper? Are there discussions amongst y'all like, hey man, let's really make this like crunk? Or is it just how it comes out?
A little of both, but no, we're all huge into electronic music. I mean, Luke's a DJ. Rory might have been the person who got me into Aphex Twin first. He's back there sampling, glitching. Luke plays a synth. I play a synth and a sampler. We actually just got Luke a sampler for his birthday. We all love, we went through a big Tipper phase. We've played Camp Bisco and geeked out to some of the crazy electronic shit on that lineup. Been to dub warehouse parties, and we love that world. So that's definitely a shared influence.
Got, remixes with different electronic artists and stuff. Do you send that stuff out? Do you reach out to some of your people in that world and say, hey, you want to flip this? Or are they taking upon themselves to, reimagine your music? I just sent some stems to Ott. Hope I hear back. Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, he's a good buddy. He's supported us, sent him some merch over the years, and he's worn it. And we're huge fans of his music. He's an extremely busy guy. But I think Yeti, I hit him up. He was interested. Essex, who did the album art, he wanted stems for Egg Time and the Vessel, so he might be cooking something up. I realize with producers, you just kind of let it. The snake doesn't shed its skin overnight. Just let it, you don't have to rush the remix album. It could come out on the anniversary of Ancient Homies in 3 years. It doesn't matter. Just let that music kind of percolate on people's hard drives and see what crazy shit they come out with. Jules actually just did a house remix of Egg Time that's pretty fucking bonkers as well.
Word. Yeah. As a I told you. Jules is who first told me about your band. I met him on a pot farm out here.
What a
And
small world.
it really
On a
is.
pot farm in California, and he's like lives 40 minutes from my house.
We share a dear mutual friend, Mikey Dredd, who's a major part of my life. So met Jules over there. We were talking shop, talking music, and yeah, he was touring with his own band at the time, and this was kind of like a stopover for gas money and to hang and work a little bit. And I think, he was just super hype on y'all. Told me about 4 times before we parted company, and it stuck with me. Yeah, we have another mutual friend, Jackson Whalen, who's going to come on this pod again one of these days.
Oh, yeah.
But
he's my good friend as well.
Yeah, he mentioned that. Yeah, he mentioned that.
Did you meet his band on the pot farm? Did he have a kid with long red hair?
Yeah, he had one homie with long hair with him who I don't recall who it was.
So that dude is like one of the most beastly guitarists on the entire planet. That's Sam McGarity. He lives in our town. We played at the Battle of the Bands in high school with his band and Lespecial were on the bill. That kid practices 7 hours a day, just like absolutely bonkers, like shreddy, tappy, arpeggios. Like he's going to be the next big thing for sure. And he's a sweetheart.
Yeah, you got to big up the hometown crew. And that's actually the same place I met Jackson. It was the same homie's farm. And I sat actually and worked side by side with Jackson for months and months. And we listened to hip hop pods and talked about life and became pretty tight friends. So yeah, when he saw me standing for y'all, he was just like, what? They're from my town. I know those guys. I'm like, oh, I know. I put the dots together.
So he was in a band with Essex, who did the album art.
Yeah, he mentioned that a while ago.
This is wild. Homies blurring into one, man. Gathering.
And we already did touch on Berkfest off the record, but that's where my whole comprehension of this whole scene comes from, is going to Berkfest, covering Berkfest for a couple years with Jam Bass. And I understand you were a youngster hitting those fests, which is like in basically your backyard, right? What was that like as a kid?
Do you remember the Relics? Do you remember the Relics article? Does size matter? It was like small festivals. And it was the picture of Berkfest with 2 people sitting on the hill. And that was it.
It was the magazine.
Yep, it was in the magazine. It was like a grassy hill, and it said, "Does size matter?" I think, and it had 2 people on it. One of them was like my sister's boyfriend in high school. Like that was like our hometown festival. Like it changed everything for me. I was 14. I was like a little techno kid, and the New Deal just fucking pulled my brain out of my skull. Everyone on that lineup, Medeski, Martin Woods, Soul Live, monster lineup in the sort of hiatus days when these bands weren't super huge yet. Sound Tribe. Oh, I remember those Tribe shows, especially that night show in the ski lodge, 100+ degrees, was just so hot,
ridiculous.
And you told me Lettuce played in the lodge. I wasn't privy to Lettuce back then. I was a huge like Soul Live kid. I was there with like my jazz band buddies, but we loved it so much. The next year I got appendicitis and was literally like in the hospital getting surgery while Medeski was playing, and convinced them to let me out the next day. Like I'm like morphined up, watching the Flaming Lips from like a lawn chair, getting my head again scooped out. They literally had a visual of a guy scooping out a piece of his brain and doing a line of it on a toilet seat. And there's some dude next to me, some bro, just like, fuck you, no. He's like flipping off the stage. But it was the most stunning show I'd ever seen in my life. Just like Wayne Coyne's like, we're just going to be like a big birthday party. And he actually like sang happy birthday to, he found a couple people in the audience whose birthday it was, like got everyone to sing happy birthday to him. It was visually explosive. I mean, they had footage of like that famous photo of the execution in Vietnam. But they had like a video of it, and the guy would fall, and then it would zoom out to the universe and like the solar system, and then the universe, and absolutely cosmic. People in animal suits jumping all around the stage. So yeah, that shit really, Berkfest started it all for me. Like I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing today if I hadn't gone to that 2 years and really just gotten deep into the music. And yeah, we probably walked by each other.
I'm sure we did, man. I mean, me and my best buddy growing up, Robbie WK, who went to BU and was super dialed in like that, Let, Soul Live, Actual Proof, D'Antoni Parks, whole thing. He hit, and he was like, he ended up being like tour manager for the Slip for years, and that was his world.
Slip.
Yeah, that was his world. So and I had a jam bass thing happening. So we, with the kid I met on the Hebrew bus, and I've seen Fish more times than I can count with him. We went up there together and wrote this story, and then I did it by myself the following year. But Berkfest was a huge formative experience for me too, even though it wasn't like my introduction to everything. Just, you talk about does size matter, and having been to some larger events and of course arena shows and all that stuff, and then just getting into nightclubs at that point in time, because I'm 21, 22, 23. So that was like the best of both worlds, plus the beautiful natural environs of, the basin and the Berkshires. And of course, the lineups were so eclectic. And what I was going to get at is, it's a shame because Bear Creek suffered a similar fate. Berkfest, a lot of it was like weather and rain and stuff. But at the end of the day, there's all kinds of financial shortcomings that killed the event, and killed the vibe. Yeah. It happened differently at Bear Creek, but same ending, 8 years. But still, it was like, both of those events were so unique in a cookie cutter world of festivals then and now. But both of those stuck out because of the lineups and the collective sort of community, familial aspect that wasn't just like some hippie bullshit, but was really felt like it permeated. So people took the festival and the relationships and the music home with them to the various cities, and this whole fertile scene blossomed. And I would say your band is kind of like the third generation to come from that seed that was born during the Fish hiatus, and so many tentacles to that organism. And that to me is, you could say what you want about guitar solos, but jam band to me is that intangible diaspora born out of that culture. And look at all the music that we've touched on that is in some way connected to that organism. And I don't know that exists, especially for people in their 30s, 40s, and older, in a whole lot of scenes. Scenes are young. Yeah. There's fads. What's hot now might not be in 2-3 years, no matter how high the art is. Yet we support our artists, our events. And you're seeing that during COVID a lot, is as evidenced by how much your fans turned out for you the other night. It's a beautiful thing. So as much as we want to be hard on how corny some of the shit in the scene is, at the end of the day, it's a blessing, and I'm grateful for it. And that's why I put so much energy into this program. That's why I put so much energy into the review I wrote, because when you have a relationship to music like I developed with that record, it's like my duty to tell the world how potent it is. And I think that lespecial is really just at the avant-garde of what's possible beyond jam band. It touches in so many different directions. And that's why I have all these tell me about this, tell me about that questions, because I'm enamored with the kaleidoscopic nature of the music.
That means a lot coming from you, man, because I've read, you're obviously a man who knows music in and out. I really enjoy reading the words you put to describing, the sounds you hear and the feelings it gives you. So thank you. That means a lot coming from you. High praise.
There's so much more to touch on that I got to go to the classical stuff, the Hall of the Mountain King, because we had that amazing sort of symbiotic thing where I was like, yeah, I used to play this song on piano when I was a kid. And you're like, fuck out of here. Are you serious? Where does classical music fit into your story? And why is that piece of music from Grieg so precious to you?
Oh man, we love that one. We've covered that one. It's just, I call it the first metal piece ever written. I mean, it sounds kind of like a palm muted guitar riff, right? When it gets going. Yeah. It's staccato, it's sharp, it's menacing, minor key, it's intense, there's crashing cymbals. It sounds like a Metallica, John, honestly. But that whole suite, I mean, I love the beauty and the Aza's Death and Mourning, and it's just a wonderful, I love classical music. I don't know how much it permeates into our music. I guess you could hear a little maybe on Omni Squid, some of the melodic themes. They sort of have a movie score quality. We love doing scoring stuff. We just did a thing for Vice called Source Material, which is all found footage of the Australian bushfires. It's a really intense, dark episode that we had the challenge of putting appropriate music to. I guess you could say Tritome is sort of drawing influence from classical themes or variations, or, it's played on a piano. So I'd like to think it's in there, but I can't claim that it is for sure. I don't know if you hear it.
Definitely some of the themes, some of the grandiose sort of cinematic, euphoric nature. Inside Tonberry, for instance. It's probably Prague to some ears, and I'm sure it is, but even Prague is, a lot of it's rooted in that really grandiose classical stuff. But yeah, I just, was interested to hear, like, when does that come into your life? Because you said you were a techno kid and you were a drummer. Like, what is your introduction? For me, my mom took me to the orchestra, Philadelphia Orchestra, one Saturday a month.
Same here.
And then, playing classical piano because I was forced to. I just gravitated to that piece of music. So your mom took you to the orchestra. No,
she didn't take me to the orchestra, but she got me music and piano lessons and shit. And I think that's where my appreciation. I mean, we still talk about classical together, and like I'll send her pieces, or we've been listening to like Thomas Tallis or like Carl Orff, like, choral, really beautiful cathedral, like just vocals. I love that shit. It's great for sampling for hip hop beats and stuff. So yeah, that's cool. Our moms turned us on to that whole world. I still love it to this day.
So was piano your first instrument then?
It was like trumpet in 5th grade and school band, reading music a little, and then piano lessons out of that. I didn't really stick with too much reading. I sang in jazz choirs in high school and like doo-wops and stuff. And you do a little sight reading for that. Once I was playing guitar, it was more just by ear and, learning the notes, but not really reading off a page anymore. But I still listen to it. I love Debussy and piano music, and I'll chip away on my piano at like Clair de Lune or whatever. Like, I'll read one measure every couple months when I have time to learn a little more of it. I love classical a lot, for sure.
Do you primarily write music on the guitar though?
Yeah, or like I'll make a beat in the computer. But yeah, a lot of it is riffing on the guitar. I'm trying to write more in my head and like from my heart and my mind, and then transfer that to the instrument, because I feel like that's more connected. So, writing with my voice a little more, like I'll be driving and I'll like hear something and I'll sing it into my voice memos and then try to make a bass line out of that. Because to me, that's like a little more to the source, whereas the guitar can kind of play you sometimes. You get into licks or habits or convenient patterns. But at the end of the day, we want to sing through our instrument. Like Kraz always talks about that. He's like, you want to sound like a vocalist. You don't want to just play the guitar, or let it play you. So I've been trying to do that a little more, like right from my mind.
That's beautiful and really well articulated, man. I know what you mean. Like to be able to sing the solo is like something primordial about that. So it's like melody and emotion. And so for that to come from an organic place and not, as you say, because you do hear that with guitar players in general, if you listen to them enough, they got their go-to sort of fallback riffs or, something they know that works. So keep going to the same well and pushing yourself. I remember
tripping acid in college and my buddy just holding a guitar. We were jamming for a while and he's holding the guitar and he kind of just looks at the floor and he like drops his hands down. He's like, man, you ever feel like the guitar is just playing you? Like, I'll never forget that, because like I do sort of know what he means. He was like tripping and kind of frustrated that maybe what was in his mind wasn't coming out of the instrument. But hey, that's why we practice.
True, but it also got to work the other way, because you hear artists saying like, I'm just a vessel, I'm just a channeling, like the music is coming through me, it's not of me.
I'm all for that as well. I totally believe that. Yep.
It works both ways. I guess it's reciprocal. And you've referenced making beats, right? So yeah, we got to go there for a bit. Outside of lespecial, like what kind of production are you into? And, who are, the gods that maybe like blew your mind on a production level? I have a feeling I know who you're going to say, but I'm not going
to. No, tell me. I think I know who you think I'm going to say.
I mean, obviously, Dilla. Let's start there.
Yep. And Flying Lotus.
Of course.
I told you that Borum left a sick mix in my Ford Explorer years ago that had Backpack Caviar by Flying Lotus. And that track just fucking blew my head open, and went down a long rabbit hole with him. Speaking of getting up, or when we're creating late at night versus morning, I just listened to him on Rick Rubin's podcast. He's been getting up at like mad early in the morning and working on music, which is cool. He said, I think that was like a new thing for him. He sort of had a shift. He's like, yeah, I just can't. I just go to bed early now, which is interesting because his music is so late night sounding to me.
Yeah, for sure. But he's also, he's really pushed those limits in a lot of ways on the last several albums, gone really deep. So I could see him wanting to maybe bring it back to the light. What are you making the beats on, and what kind of beats are you making? How do you sample? Are you sampling vinyl?
I used to do that. I had a guitar lesson with Shmeen's once, and he showed me this little BBE box that you can get that allows you to sample off vinyl. It like brings it up to level so you can get it into your computer without too much static. So I've been thinking lately, like, fuck, I really got to do that. I haven't sampled off a record in so long, but there's a quality to it. At the same time, though, now you can download like vinyl sample packs that someone else sampled off a record. So I guess there's no difference. But yeah, I've done some of that. I use Ableton. Shout out Jules again. He kind of is my tech support there. He kind of taught me how to use the program early on. I remember being at his house. He's playing the drums. He's like, all right, record a clip. I didn't even know how to do that much back then. And now I know my way around it pretty well. I'll sample, I'll mess around on a synth for a long time and then chop stuff out of that, parts that I like, or I'll lay down a drum beat on the drum kit and make a loop. Really, it's recording back to the endless nature of recording. It can go so many directions that sometimes it's overwhelming. But I like to explore and try different things. Lately, it's less been making like hip hop beats. I went through a few years where I did a lot of that, but more towards like, all right, if I'm going to sit down and like mess with Ableton, like, let's see if it can't be something that can be channeled through lespecial or made into a lespecial song, because clearly that's where the ears are. Not many people know my solo project shit. So I've been trying to really use time wisely for that too. We've got the whole studio set up now and mic'd up, and Rory's drums have been living here. So really trying to just keep creating, and any old projects that are sitting on the hard drive, trying to, open them and see what needs to be done. And because I don't like to have a ton of unfinished stuff. I guess that's the reality. You're always going to have a mountain of unfinished beats, but it really feels good to kind of get them out to people at the same time.
And I'd be interested to hear whenever you do start putting stuff out that's, hip hop beats or whatever. Do you have like a producer name or anything like that? Or is it just kind of like a pet project?
Yeah, it used to be Stimulus Clan. And, it's like probably 300 likes on Facebook or some shit. But I have a Bandcamp and a SoundCloud, and there's tons of old beats up there. I can send you some shit. But I've been thinking about that. Like, I do have a lot of music, solo music, and I'm thinking like maybe I just release it as Jonny G, along with my like acoustic recordings. I have mad like acoustic folk covers, and so I'm thinking about maybe just putting a whole Jonny G Bandcamp together one day, but in the meantime just doing the special stuff.
Right on. Yeah, Josh Blake does it like that. He's got the hip hop record he just put out. Before that it was like Josh Blake acoustic band, just then one of him and his wife singing together. So just whatever, kind of put it out there. And yeah, I think that's the beauty of this era of like releasing music digitally and stuff, is that you don't have to have a whole campaign and a label, physical product. You just like on a whim put some stuff out there. So I'd be definitely down to check out the SoundCloud. You have to send it my way. And
nice, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. I love your ideas, and I love the music I've heard thus far, and sure as shit love talking music with you. So I imagine if you're inspired by Dilla and Fly Low, come on, I'm going to dig. And of course, we talked earlier a little bit about Deitch and drums and such.
Yeah, he's got a mountain of beats. He showed me one once that was him. He sampled his vacuum. I was like, what'd you sample? He's like, a vacuum. I'm like, what? And he had to literally, like, we were in like a loud room. He had to like, with his hand, like motion, like vacuum, like, I was like, what? He fucking made a beat out of his vacuum. I want to hear that shit.
If he knew how adjacent to Fish that was, he'd be horrified.
Oh, God.
But, yeah, let's talk Adam just for a sec, because I know we're both super inspired by him. He's my favorite artist in music.
That's funny, because Shmeens loves Fish. I never knew Deitch wasn't in.
Oh, yeah, they went to a show together as kids, and they had opposite reactions.
No shit.
It's funny. And Shmeens does love Fish, for sure.
Well, that's great that they can coexist in a band and be so encouraging and motivating to each other and helping each other elevate musically and making this fucking amazing music and have, disparate influences. We're the same way. There's some bands maybe that I get down with that they don't get down with, too emo or something.
You've referenced a few times that you did some work with Break Science on the road. What was that like? And when was that?
It was pretty nerve-wracking. I was like a super fan, pretty green. This was like 2007. We'd been touring, but not like super hard like we did after that. I was, quite a fan, and I drove them to a few gigs. They were opening for Sound Tribe and Pretty Lights. This was before Pretty Lights like exploded out here. So it was just like small shows at like the Paradise. It was Sound Tribe, like PA sets. We pulled up to one club in Westchester, PA, and Bam Margera was standing out front smoking, and turned out he owned the place. So I got to like meet Bam and tell him to check out Break Science, and I'll never forget, he like repeated it back, and he's like, Break Science? Like he was actually, actually was interested in the artist that was playing in his bar, so I thought that was cool. But no, I mean, I look up to those dudes so much that it was a great opportunity, but I probably wasn't, their idea of the most ideal tour manager. I think they were around 30 at that time. They'd been doing it a long time. So, if I did it again this year, it would be a lot better.
They've had their fair share of different folks in that role, so I'm sure you just blended right in. And you've had the opportunity to be on the other end and had to count on a TM and understand how crucial being Jonny on the spot is in that scenario.
Oh, yeah. Like, I can't believe what I put them through. Like, I think I picked Deitch up and then was like, yo, man, sorry, I got to, like, put a mirror on the left side of my Ford Explorer. Like, my mirror had been smashed off, and, like, I hadn't dealt with it until, like, I picked Deitch up, which was a pretty rookie move. So they were probably like, who the fuck is this joker?
Right on. Yeah, man. Well, maybe one day, you guys can make some music together.
Exactly.
It would be a dream. But yeah, this is a big Deitch house, big Lettuce house, big Break Science. It's just anything he does. And so naturally, I already loved you and the music enough, but to know that you were a super fan and had some funny early era stories in that capacity is just small world shit once again.
I was a Soul Live geek all through like the jazz band high school days. We'd go see them all the time in Medeski and shit. And then I don't remember when I discovered Lettuce. I think honestly it was my buddies in Northern Vermont saw them at like Club Metronome. And
I've been there a bunch of times.
Yeah, great club, above Nectar's. We all got Rage, I think it was, and like we just spinned it for like an entire summer. Just such a good album. And I think that's when the Lettuce craze hit. But yeah, they're enormous influence for us, and we really look up to them and how much reverence they have for like the tradition of funk music.
That's awesome.
I bet Deitch would like Repeater.
Yeah, well, I think he'd like Machine Elf and Boundary Dissolution too.
You're right. The Boundary, I bet him and Bourne would be into Boundary.
A long ass time ago, before I got close to the guys, I had a conversation with Adam in the like early dubstep era, 2009, when it like hit America, and he was hype on like the UK shit, and like was talking about how he met Keith Shockley from the Bomb Squad at some UK dub party in Brooklyn, like just recently.
Oh, wow.
That just stuck with me. Yeah.
I thought you knew him since Bergfest 02.
No, that was my first second Lettuce experience. And, I was like super fan. Obviously had conversations with him, but no, I was like an annoying blah guy to him for a while. Yeah, for sure. And then actually the way it worked was, when they played at Bear Creek, and I hadn't seen them since, because they've been pretty much dormant, save for the occasional Wetland show between 03 and 08. So I hadn't seen them in years, and I had moved to Florida, and it was my second Bear Creek. And when I wrote up the review, I referenced how they had teased Gangstar, and like, yeah, We've been homies ever since. That's how that happened. Shmeen's on the real heavy guitar stuff. He's got appreciation for some good
I was
heavy
gonna
guitar.
say I was gonna assume he would be the least likely to be into the metal shit.
I just think some of the guitar, like just, much like my boy Gabe was like immediately hip to like your approach, your style. You wanted to see your rig. Shmeen's is an axeman. He's a guitarist. Shmeen's is like really unique Catfish style guitar. He plays like Catfish a lot.
Totally.
Like lead and rhythm at the same time, and also atmospheric. This is great.
Yeah, like that Phyllis shit.
Yeah. That was like his coming out party for that style.
Yeah. Yep. Well said.
No,
that's a great take. And you're right about the electronic music aspect. Deitch is the one who got me into
Flying Lotus, him and Borum, which became like my favorite shit I'd ever heard.
Like your music in the headphones, this record particularly, there's so much nuance and dynamics in the headphones, like sound design wise, that you're hearing. Like I mentioned Amon Tobin to you before, but what are the influences from a sound design or quote unquote electronic or technological perspective?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, that's like all I listen to is electronic. Tipper, Aphex Twin, as far as like really sound designing, using panning and stuff.
The two of the greatest ever. Yeah.
Absolutely. Aphex is, literally like Mozart of our generation, I think. I love, drum and bass, jungle music. Hive there's a Hive track everyone might know from the Matrix soundtrack called Ultrasonic Sound, which samples Bad Brains. Just like the heaviest, and he makes it so much heavier. It was in the Matrix soundtrack. That's a dope track that got me into Hive. He's dope. I could go on. There's so much electronic music. I love it. Dub.
That too, I picked up on that. Where does the metal get into the picture? What really hooked me on Ancient Homies is how unabashedly metal it is, but you can't put it just in a heavy metal bin. But there's so much of what I love incorporated into this in a really unique, fresh way. So I want to know, because I'm a Hesher since I got Master Puppets for Hanukkah on cassette in '88. And before I loved Fish or the Dead or anything else, man, and I'm still a headbanger, I love the metal edge. So, how did that get into the picture for you and then for the special?
Well, they got me into Primus in high school. They're like, you're coming to the show. So there's that. I mean, I grew up with, alternative 90s rock. It was like Radio 104 coming out of Hartford. So I'm hearing like White Zombie, Nirvana. My sister goes to see a White Zombie show. I was obsessed. I stole her CD, listened to the shit out of it. Just heavy guitar tones.
Dude, Jay Younger, he's incredible. Jay Younger, fucking love that dude.
Absolutely. And I've just followed their bass player on Instagram. It's a cool blast from the past. But heavy music. Obviously, Rage Against the Machine was huge for us.
Mm-hmm.
They were like I cried when they broke up. I was devastated. I was so deep into Rage.
Same.
And then later years, Tool, more genty stuff now. We really like Animals as Leaders and Chan and Polyphia. That's where the distorted guitar comes from, I guess.
There was a band, and when we were I'll wrap up with this. There was a band when we were in high school called Chain Reaction. And they were from South Jersey. A couple of the guys went to our high school. And it was two dudes that were metal guys. The lead guitarist and the drummer. They were like Sepultura, Slayer, Anthrax, metal. And the other two dudes were straight edge punks. So Minor Threat, Agnostic Front, 7 Seconds, Shelter. And they made a demo tape, Chain Reaction did. And it's like the holy grail to our crew.
Wow.
Your record, intangible characteristic, not unlike that Chain Reaction demo.
Interesting.
When I heard it the first time, I was like, I thought to myself, this might be what Chain Reaction would have turned into sounding like 30 years later. It's a really incredible blend of this sort of, I don't know if you even listen to hardcore, but it has this New York City hardcore pocket, chunky pocket, and it also has those really sort of, you're probably Robert Fripp to you, right? The King Crimson shit. But to me, that's Merciful Fate or Maiden, really proggy metal. And that was the marriage that was Chain Reaction. The sort of really heavy proggy side of speed metal and the brute force and sort of funky pocket of hardcore. So I'm sending my Chain Reaction buddies, dudes who love it. One of them still has it on cassette.
Wow. I want to hear that.
Ancient Homies. I'll see if I get them to upload it for you.
I love the metal with the, like you said, with the funky pocket. That's dope. That's not enough people do that. And yeah, man, like you were saying that you heard a similarity between Chain Reaction and us. It's like, we don't write this shit. This shit comes down. We're channeling, I'm sure if you asked any of the Lettuce dudes, they'd agree, we're just vessels. So you're going to hear similarities. You're going to hear that thread in there. It's deep, and it's an honor to be a part of it.
15 years, original lineup, putting out amazing art, testing the limits of what's possible, and also being a major presence in your fans' lives during this period of time, putting out this record, doing the stuff you've done online, and of course the New Year's thing. You know, shit is important now. That kind of stuff is like, you can't put a price or meaning on it. People are in such a weird, sad, they need hope. They need something to hold on to. And you all have provided that in a major way. And I speak for myself, you know, like what Ancient Homies has done for me since you so graciously messaged me and said, hey, check out this record a month or so before it came out. Like, I can't thank you enough, man. I tried to in writing that article, but in general, like, the art, you know, is just so precious and so righteous. And knowing what I do now, knowing you like I do now, and hearing you talk about your reverence, the connection you have with your bandmates, and like what you strive to do in making the art, it just rings out, man. And so I'm happy and grateful that you reached out. You know, we're ancient homies now, and you're coming on the pod. And I hope most people listen to my show probably know who the hell you are, but if a handful that don't do now, mission accomplished.
Hell yeah, man. I can't thank you enough, and I agree. It's nice that you say that, you know, we're helping people in this time, because I did have a big smile on my face all New Year's just watching the comments roll in and the donations and seeing the appreciation. It felt really good. It was probably the best New Year's I've ever had, to be honest. 33 years of age.
Having been to Big Cypress, and I can't really give it the crown. I watched a ton of music, and you guys are a major part of that. And yeah, it's crystal clear that, you know, your fans appreciate what y'all are doing, and you have a great personality, the band. I'm saying each of the guys kind of has their own mojo, and it's a unique elixir, and I find it intoxicating. So with that, I'll say thank you for your time and your energy, and of course the music. Give a pound to your partners in crime on my behalf, just because, you know, grateful to be in your orbit.
You too, brother. It's really awesome that we are new friends and can vibe about music, and it's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Likewise. And I'll leave you with the fact that I'm glad that Jules schooled you on Ableton, because I just got Ableton like yesterday along with it. Yeah, I got this Akai MPK 49 for Christmas. Some friends conspired. They were tired of hearing me, what I just said to you. I used to make music, man. I used to play music, man. So yeah, no more used to. That's great. I got the synth, and I got 11. I got like I don't want to say too much on the air, cracked version, you know. It was like, here's a gift, you know. It was like, cool. So I'm a beginner, man. I'm ready to start, like, whatever it is. So you might be getting some, hey, Jonny G, can you help me here and there.
I'd love to, man. I'm a teacher, and I enjoy passing it on. So hit me up anytime.
Right on. Well, I give thanks for, your opportunity to speak with me, and man, we'll do it again down the road. We should make this a regular thing.
I would love to, man. I had so much fun.
Yes, indeedy. Want to say large up and deep bow of gratitude to my man, Jonny G, for those wonderful conversations. Learned so much about lespecial, learned a great deal about Jonny G, his journey, and of course we had lots of similar passions, inspirations, and even some formative experiences such as Berkfest or Adam Deitch, etc. So with that, we're going to move into the Vibe Junkie Jam like we always do about this time. Just want to reiterate, please rate and review the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Send me an email at b.gets@upfullife.com. Any feedback is appreciated. And of course, check out our brand new Patreon, patreon.com/upfullife. And I'm going to finish up with a twofer, really a threefer. So Vibe Junkie jams, if you will. I'd be remiss if I didn't play a little more lespecial. Of course, did a huge story on them around this album, Ancient Homies. You can find that on Live for Live Music. It's called Food of the Gods. And I'll quote from my own slack-jawed stannery. Ancient Homies is an absolutely stunning synthesis of slammin' sludge riffage, shoegaze oscillations, breakbeat meets Britpop, psychedelic dub, and brainiac polyrhythms, all of it swimming in supersonic sound design. Lespecial's cataclysmic post-rock ambitions are all that jazz, expertly embedded within emotive songcraft. The band's deft, minimalist approach and exquisite instrumental storytelling makes for definitive juxtapositions and a thrilling expedition. So with that, you're going to hear the magnum opus, in my opinion, of Ancient Homies, just called Tonberry. We talk about it a little bit in the interview. Just a massive tune, so heavy, so just thrilling and exhilarating. So we'll leave you with that as the Vibe Junkie jam, and of course, you know we had to do some Villain. So obviously being out here, big Mad Lib house, the Upful Life podcast is, and of course we're celebrating the life and times of MF Doom, so going to reach back to Mad Villainy for a twofer in the form of the glorious Accordion, and follow that up with Meat Grinder. So 2 MF Doom songs to wrap it up on the Upful Life podcast, episode 40. Thanks to my man Jonny G, lespecial, and that'll do it. We'll see you next time.
That'll be the hour they knock the slick blaster. Dick Dastardly and Muttley with sick laughter. A gunfight and they come to cut the mix master. ICE Cole, nice to be old. Y2G Steve twice to threefold. He sold scrolls, low and behold. Know who's the illest ever, like the greatest story told. Keep your glory gold and glitter. For half of his niggas to take him out the picture. The other half is rich and it don't mean shit to villain. A mixture between both with a twist of liquor. Chasing with more beer. Tasting like truth for dear. When he at the mic, it's like the place get like, oh yeah. It's like they know what's about to happen. Just keep your eye out like I capping. Is he still a fly guy clapping if nobody ain't hear it? And can they testify from in the spirit? And living the true gods, giving y'all nothing but the lick like two broads. Got more lyrics than the church got ooh lords. And they hold the mic at your attention like two swords. Either that, or either one with two blades on it. Hey you, don't touch the mic like it's AIDS on it. Yeah, it's like the end to the means. Fuck type of message that sends to the fiends. That's why he bring his own needles and get more cheese than Doritos, Cheetos or Fritos. Slip like Freudian, your first and last step to playing yourself like accordion. When he at the mic, you don't go next. Leaving pussycats like why hoes need Kotex. Exercise index won't need Bowflex and won't take the one with no skinny legs like Joe Tex. Dripping off the meat grinder, heat niner, pimping, stripping, soft, sweet minor. China was a neat sign of trouble with the script digits, double dip, bubble lip, subtlest midget. Borderline schizo, sort of fine tits though, porter wine, order grind, 8:45, let's go. Ever since 10-11, glad she made a brethren. Then it's last down, 7 alligator, 7 at the gates of heaven knocking, no answer, slow dancer, hopeless romancer, dopest flow stanzas, yes, no, villain, metal face to Destro, guess so, still incredible in escrow. Just say ho, I'll test the yayo. Wild West style fest, y'all best to lay low. Hey bro, day glow, set the bet, pay dough. Before the cheddar get away, best to get Mako. The worst hated god who perpetrated odd favors demonstrated in the perforated rod lavers. In all quad flavors, large savers. Still back in the game like Jack LaLanne. Think you know the name, don't rack your brain. On a fast track to half sane, either in a slow beat or that's the speed or rap the cane. Laughter, pain, throwing songs lit in the booth with the best host, doing bong hits on the roof in the West Coast. He's at it again, mad at the pen, glad that we win. A tad fat in a bad hat for men. Grind the cinnamon, Manhattan warmongers. You can find the villain in satin. Gongas, the van screeches, the old man preaches about the gold sand beaches. The cold hand reaches for the old tan Elises.